Yeah, okay. So, do anyone of you have any idea or have any knowledge about what PEGA is and how things are, or what actually PEGA is in the industry? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, it's a CRM like Salesforce, right?
It's not entirely a CRM like Salesforce, but yeah, partly it's correct. It's a BPM tool, right? It's a model-driven BPM application tool. It's a low-code, no-code model-driven development tool, and it enables business users to work together in hand with the IT to configure applications. So a lot of you have heard about, let's say, initially we used to develop applications using Java and using different tools where there are a lot of codings and complex, numerous codings that were involved, right, in order to develop application. But Pega has made it simpler. I mean, when we say about low code or no code model driven development, it actually indicates using visual tools instead of writing those lengthy codes in order to develop the application, right, through guided screens or guided wizards. In the backend, there are obviously codings that are implemented, and this Pega is based out on top of Java. But as a developer, you don't have to write all those lengthy and all those complex codes. Rather, it's moving towards a low code environment, which helps development as well as the non-technical users to use visual tools in order to build an application quickly, right? So the CPBA while working, I mean, if anyone is trying to work or trying to let's say participate in a Pega project, or let's say an organization using Pega technology, and I mean, as a vendor, they're obviously using the Pega technology and try to develop or build an application, then there are different roles that get involved in those Pega projects, right? So one of them is the business architect. So in business architects, we call them as certified Pega business architects, because you need to do a certification in order to enroll yourself in a Pega project, right? Now there are different roles also involved, like system architects, senior system architects, and those are all certified. I mean, those are different certifications. I mean, and, I mean, a guy can come in and work as a system architect or developer, right? Developers are called system architects over here, or senior developers are called senior system architects over here in Pega. So a resource can come in and work in a Pega project, but they need to ensure, I mean, vendors need to ensure that the resource has the certification done in order to continue in the Pega projects, right? Be it for business architects, or be it for system architects, and be it for any other roles. So there are different certifications involved in Pega, which needs to be done. Now, the industry standard, I mean, I'll just help you with the difference between a conventional business analyst and the Pega certified business architect, though it's quite similar in terms of the roles and responsibilities that need to play in their daily life in the industry. So going by the industry standard definition, if we go for a business analyst is someone who documents an organization's business processes and makes data informed recommendations for process improvement through products, services, and softwares, right? So that they are generally involved with multiple discussions or multiple workshop sessions with the client in order to gather different requirements, then analyze those requirements, translate those requirements into let's say signed up documents, and then helping the development team and the testing team with those let's say requirements, and then also facilitating the development process, right? And also the UAT process, correct? So in practice, however, the role of business analyst is frequently limited somewhat to requirements gathering and documentation, if you notice, I mean, deeply, or notice, I mean, in a let's say a deeper way. But in other words, they function as a kind of integration layer between, or bridging the gap between business and IT, right? Accurately communicating the needs of the business in terms that IT can understand and deliver, because development team might not understand what business is actually saying. It's the duty of the business analyst to make the development team understand and bridge those gap between the business and the IT, right? They collect and translate those requirements or the business needs in order to help development team so that they can contribute and develop the final solution. Whereas the industry standard definition of business architect, on the other hand, is someone who understands the business well, the corporate strategy, and the designs the organizational structures, processes, policies, and initiatives designed to advance well-defined business objectives. I mean, it's more to cater to the business objectives and the need oriented, and the business architect is a tactician, I would say, but has a little no formal relationship with enterprise IT, right? So those are the industry wise how we portray business analyst and business architect as. Now, Pega business, how does Pega business architect role fit in, right? Within this business analyst and business architect area. So one thing, if you have any question, you can immediately, I mean, stop me and you can immediately ask me anytime. You're free to ask questions anytime.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So to continue with what I was saying, how does the Pega business architect role fit in, right? So they doesn't conventionally fit within an industry standard definition of either business analyst or business architect, and that's why people find it a bit of dicey that what actually is Pega business architect role and what do we do as a Pega business architect in projects. So it's a mix and match. So like business analyst, if we refer business analyst, Pega business architects work with the organizations. Yes, they too work with the organizations, documenting their business processes, and before that, understand their existing or as is business processes, right? Then documenting, I mean, the businesses, processes, or systems, and assessing the business models for integration with technology, right? Since we are calling the term as architect, so more of techno-functional role is involved. It's not entirely functional role, right? Like documenting and understanding the technology. Also, we do have, as a Pega business architect, we do have certain technical roles to play as well, like the solution architecture and all, not from the technical part, but the flow diagram, the solution proposal, or what should be the to be solution based on the as is solution understanding. So those architecture in terms of solution that needs to be provided, right? And along with that, they need to assess the business models also for integration with technology. So there might be different technologies involved, right? Third party systems involved, or the integrations, different integrations involved, because today's let's say business in I mean actually they work in different siloed applications, right? Where there are multiple integrations involved and all. So as a business architect, it's a duty, or it's a responsibility, I would rather say, to understand those various integrations with different technologies in order to propose a solution, right? Or what could define the future of the business. A Pega business architect also supports the development of business capabilities of the enterprise in line with the corporate strategy, right? So they need to be in line with the strategy, the business strategy, or the objectives, right? So which, while also contributing meaningfully to the business strategy and plans. So it's a hybrid sort of role of the industry standard business analyst and business architect, right? So what does Pega Business Architects actually bring to the table? So today's session, I would like to highlight that what before you move into the in and out of what is Pega and what actually you need to learn, or what are the different topics or modules that need to be let's say that need to be discussed or understood before you appear for these certifications and then you move your career towards this Pega business architect role. I just want to first highlight about what is actually Pega business architect, or what does Pega business architect bring to the table. Then we can move into the topics which we will be learning, and we can go in details. So now I will just like to highlight that what does Pega Business Architect bring to the table. So this Pega Business Architects don't just do the usual project stuff. They are required in different phases right? Throughout the journey, I would say. When I call journey, the journey starts not only from the development, the journey starts way, way, way ahead when we are developing or when we are proposing a solution depending on the client's requirement. When I say proposing a solution, it's not on the development front. I am saying about the pre-sales activities, right? So during the pre-sales activities, when we are trying to acquire the new client, right, business architect's role starts from there. It's not only gathering the requirements once the project comes, and gathering the requirements, analyzing them, and then documenting them, and doing the conventional stuffs, right? So during the RFI or RFP phases, I mean the request for proposal, request for information, request for query, whatever it might be, the pre-sales activities, during those phases, the Pega Business Architect's role actually starts. So that's why it's not just the usual project stuff that Pega Business Architects are involved in. They are also supporting enablement, taking users and other stakeholders on the Pega journey. So let's say a RFP comes, a proposal comes, right? A client has provided with a very high level scope that we want an application which would cater to our existing users as well as the new users in terms of loan application facilitation, or let's say digital KYC. So we as a Pega business architect, obviously there will be other roles like the lead system architect, or there will be technical guys as well, to say in layman word. But we as a Pega business architect need to ensure that the client or the stakeholders feel comfortable on the Pega journey in terms of the capabilities what we provide with Pega, and how easier will it be in terms of solutioning or in terms of application development by using the Pega technology, right? It's the job of the Pega business architects. Obviously, there will be supporting hands available from the vendor organization, but as far as the capability presentation, or solution approach, or how we can proceed, so that's the job of the responsibility of the business architects to
Okay.
take the stakeholders on the Pega journey. Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm sorry, quick question on that. So when you said this, right, then because for me, I mean, like, when you, let's in a layman's language, right? So
Mhm.
at the RFP level,
Correct.
then what would the system architects and senior system architects do? Because they have more technical knowledge on designing the
Right.
system than a business architect, right? So
Right.
is it not their responsibility to actually do, and how does it fall under a business architect shoulder
Okay.
in terms of solutioning?
Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah, as I mentioned, I mean that there are different roles involved in that let's say RFP phases, right? Obviously, there are system architects, senior system architects, or the lead system architects, and there are obviously business architects or the lead business architects. I mean, involved, right? So,
Mhm.
in terms of capability, like let's say when I say about capability, let's say the client's requirement is that we want to develop an application, right, which would cater to different regions or cross countries, right? So, as a business analyst, you should be aware about the Pega's capability on a functional front or on a techno-functional front, that okay, Pega do support or do have a situational layer cake feature. I mean, I'll come to that in details just for answering your question. So the Pega do have a situational layer cake feature which helps in building an application and catering to different region or region specific applications on top of the base layer, right? So you will be telling, or you will be promoting, or you will be defining the capabilities, how to handle that or how to develop the application depending upon the capabilities, that will be taken care by the system architects or the technical guys. Is it clear? You
Yeah,
are there to support from the functional front or the capability front, that Pega do have this feature, right? How to add or how to develop the application depending on that feature, or how that feature can be leveraged in order to develop the application, that will be taken care by the technical person.
okay, but in a real world scenario, right?
Mhm.
what is the percentage that you think a business architect would be involved at RFP level? Because I believe like once they win the RFP and then they budget for that, and that's when they recruit most of the project team members. So
In yeah.
I I mean, not I'm not saying in every scenario, right? Most of the scenarios in IT industry, that's what I've been seeing for the last 18 years. Uh, but yeah, if that is the case, yes, it would be helpful when we are involved at RFP level. But if not, how do we cope up? Like, when you join a new project, new company, and your project manager, your scrum product owner, whoever says that this is what we are going to develop, right? So, do we have a say in that in terms of the solutioning, or it is always like the system architects and the lead architects they take that?
Okay, I'll answer your question in two parts. First, regarding your question that, I mean, is it like in every RFP the business architects are involved, or why they are involved? I mean, what role do they play, right? So to answer that question first, yes, in Pega, business architects are essential and must in the RFP phase or RFI phase, because there are different ways. If you look, some clients just might want to understand that we are trying to develop an application, they are
Mhm.
deciding on which technology to use, right? There might be situations, correct, whether we will be
Correct.
using Pega, or whether you will be using APN, or whether you will be using any open source technology in BPM, right? So to do that, there can be RFIs or RFQs, right? Request for information, just to gather certain information about the technology front, right? So in order to do that, business architects are the ones who prepare those decks to help the client understand that what are the Pega capabilities which might solve their existing problem and help them to develop an application for the future, correct, from the
Okay.
capability front. So that
Okay.
that role business architects play. Till that point there is nothing technical, so there is no question of system architects and senior system architects and whatever technical persons involved, correct. It's just
Right.
from the capability front which they answer to the client, fine. So let's say the client is convinced about what, that they will be taking Pega technology, Pega as their technology partner, correct? And the vendor
Yeah.
will be, let's say, XYZ company. Now they are providing the company or vendor organization with a high level scope, correct?
Hmm.
Where it's pretty much high level, which is very difficult for the technical person to decipher and to understand that what is written, correct? So it's the business architects who will be conducting multiple workshop sessions or multiple meetings or multiple discussions with the client side, right? Client side SME or business users, in order to break the entire high level scope document into different story points or different flows or different cases, right? I would say not cases at this point, but different stories and flows, right? Or epics, correct?
Yeah. Similar to what BS do in breaking down
Correct,
the requirement.
correct,
Yeah.
correct,
Okay.
correct, correct. So till that point, there is no involvement directly from the technical side, correct? Because the
Yes.
business architects are in multiple discussions with the clients and multiple discussions with the business and from the client to understand the epics or how many flows will be there, and in order to let's say chalk out the flow diagram, process flow diagram, that how it will look like if it is. So once that is done, correct, then, and once that is done, and once all the stories, epic stories, and all the, let's say, flows are pretty much finalized, then the technical person will come into picture in order to estimate the scope depending upon the stories, the epics, and the flows, correct? Because they are the ones who will be looking into, or who will be understanding that how much effort or how much estimation is required depending upon this, let's say, story, for this story or for this epic, correct? So this type of differentiation is there between the between the business architect and the system architect roles, to answer your question, during the RFP phases, correct? Am I clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now to answer your question on the second part of your question, I mean, what if that the business architects are not involved in the RFP phase, and then they are, I mean, involved when the project is won, and now the development is starting, correct? This was your another question, correct? Sorry, am I audible?
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't
Yeah.
able to get out of
Okay,
mute. Yeah.
this was your other question, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there are chances that business architects might not get involved. Let's say there are situations when there are no business architects available, or let's say it doesn't require business architect because the need was not there in let's say a handful of RFPs are there in which business architects do not get involved. But there are also situations you also need to take this situation into consideration. Let's say I, as a business architect, have worked on the RFP, correct? But it is not necessary that since I have worked on the RFP and the project is won, I will be working as the business architect when the project is won. There might be a scenario that I have worked on the RFP part. You, as a business architect, will be assigned to that project when the project has been won. Correct? There can be scenarios.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this is pretty normal scenario, right? Real life scenario. So now what will happen? Obviously, there are scenarios like this. So as you, as a business architect, when you will be assigned to this project, you need to go through the documentation very carefully. You need to understand, I mean, you can take help from me because I have worked on the RFP. You need to understand the different documentation that has come up depending upon the RFPs. You need to have multiple workshop sessions, or let's say discovery sessions, with the business side from the client, or the client business side, in order to understand the requirement. First, you need to take help from the technology, I mean, sorry, the technical resources, in order to understand even you might need to understand it from the technical resource in order to understand the requirement in a deeper level. And you need to proceed ahead, because in the RFP part, what happens, the RFP part, I mean, there are obviously areas where the business architects need to understand how it will, how the existing process is happening, and depending on that, how the proposed approach will be, and then the user stories, and these are defined, and the project is won. Now, as a business architect, when the project is starting, so the requirement gathering, analysis, and everything will be much on a deeper level, right? Because
Yeah.
based on your requirement gathering and documentation, the development team will be developing the application. Whatever you have provided in the RFPs, what you can do in order to achieve them this application. But when the requirement is actually coming, there might be a deviation, a little bit of, let's say, 5%, 10% deviation from what they requested during the RFP phase, right? So depending on that, you need to refine or have the fresh set of requirement gathering session through multiple workshops, or in Pega we call it DCO sessions, direct capture of objectives, right? So through those sessions, you need to gather those requirements, analyze those requirements, and you need to document it well and provide it, or have a discussion with the development team, the testing team, in order to guide them through those requirements.